Hello, all you degenerate sinners! Today on Fundie Sunday, we are tackling logical, plausible, probable, none of which actually applies to this person, aka John Maddox. So I'm actually going to tackle his intro video or whatever his featured channel video first because it just annoys the shit out of me. And alright, let's do that, and then we're gonna do some good old evolution right after.
Hey, what's up YouTube? John Maddox coming at you with the introduction to my new channel.
By the way, he doesn't look like this anymore. He shaved his head and has a giant beard. He's looking a little rough these days.
Logical, plausible, probable, where I attempt to break down the arguments being made by atheists, skeptics, agnostics,
Keyword attempt. He doesn't actually get past any of the straw men, but there you go.
evolutionists, and everybody else in between as to why it is a more reasonable conclusion that God exists, we do not exist by chance, and that there is ultimate purpose beyond what we are being told by those who refuse to take any
And what is this purpose? Just to worship God? Sounds like a narcissist.
aspect of belief seriously, and also try to argue that you, if you believe so, are not a reasonable person. Please subscribe to the channel, make sure you share it with your friends, and I hope that I can.
Okay, so because you hold supposedly unreasonable position, that you are an unreasonable person in general. This is exactly the problem that like super militant atheists have, is that they assume because religious people hold religion is an irrational belief by definition, but just because someone holds an irrational belief does not mean they're an irrational person. That is a problem in atheism, where we just paint any religious person as just a holistically dumb person, right? So here John is committing this fallacy that if you hold one irrational position, you're an irrational person, but atheism is not irrational. Believing things on faith is irrational, and whatever he's about to talk about is also irrational.
Can help bring knowledge and insight and research that I've done over the years to your...
He has not done research. He's read some creationist websites who also don't do research.
minds and to your eyes and to you across the world. The reason I'm doing this channel is about 7 years ago, I actually cheated death. I was running a pretty successful company and was living high on the hog, and then I found out that I was having a massive brain hemorrhage. I found this out on a Wednesday morning, and Friday morning I had emergency brain surgery. But it was a fascinating time in my life where I came to the realization.
So having brain surgery is cheating death? I'm not sure if that checks out. That's just called a medical intervention.
That I was being held accountable for a promise that I had made God back my freshman year in college,
So God will give people brain hemorrhages if they break their promises? This seems like a very active, very interventionist, very involved God. So why don't I have a brain hemorrhage? Why can't he actually intervene in things that matter? But he'll give you a life-threatening brain hemorrhage, a believer, because I guess you'll explain it.
Was that for 10 years I was going to go out, live this world up, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, make a bunch of money, and then I would get my life back in order. Well, guess what? It was on.
So this is exactly... So whenever Christians say, you just want to sin, that's why you're an atheist, the obvious response is, if I wanted to sin, I would be a Christian, because then I would just be able to sin and get all my sins forgiven. And then the response back is, you can't just go around sinning with the expectation of being forgiven. You have to try not to sin. And yet, here John is with the expectation he can make a deal with God. I'm just going to sin and you'll forgive me later. And that's always characterized as not really believing, not being a true Christian by the Christians. And yet, this person thinks that you can go making deals with God to sin now and be forgiven later. And then God will give you a brain hemorrhage when it's time to collect. Okay. This is very easily testable. It's not logical, plausible, or probable, because I guarantee you that there are other people who've made similar deals and they don't get brain hemorrhages later on.
Almost 10 years to the day from when I had made that promise.
Yeah, they don't get brain hemorrhages 10 years later. This is a very easily testable proposition. And almost, he said 10 years almost to the day. You'd think an all-powerful God could be a little bit more precise. Why the few days discrepancy? Was it just more convenient to happen on a Wednesday or something? This is pure irrationality, and it's, oh my God. And he cheated death. So was this not God's plan for you to have survived this? And does God typically use life-threatening maladies as a mere warning or a phone call? Why can't he just call you? Why can't he just say, yo? Why can't he show up? He has to put your life in the hands of professionals. You didn't cheat anything. And they didn't cheat either. They used their years and years of knowledge and the hundreds, if not thousands of years of technological industry, the tools needed to perform this technology. No cheating there. It's all scientific knowledge, all based on a method which you do not use to come to your conclusions around God.
To when I found myself lying in ICU being told by doctors that I should not be alive. And
so I guess it was a miracle. Or did you need that medical intervention? Because if you shouldn't be alive because of a miracle from God, then you shouldn't have needed any medical intervention whatsoever. God would have saved you anyway. What's the point of putting you through all of that and putting it in the hands of doctors? What if you got an incompetent doctor by chance? So if they hadn't been highly skilled doctors and surgeons, then they would have thwarted God's plans. Wow, what a completely dumbass and impotent God you have.
And there's a whole much more to that story, but the major piece of it is that I was left with my ability to reason, to think, to communicate, and I should not.
Clearly not. You clearly had some brain damage. Although you probably, it seems like you were suffering from irrationality from long before that hemorrhage. So I don't know, actually.
Have those skills, and yet I do. And I decided that it was time to start using those talents that I was blessed with to help.
So you weren't using the talents before when you were running a successful company, but now you're using your talents of rationality to argue for belief in a God who makes death pacts with people to dishonestly sin now and then repent later, which violates the whole ethic of being forgiven in the first place. Okay. Not to mention the fact that you have no evidence to support any of this. Yeah, now you're using rationality. This is worse than I remember when I first watched this like a while ago.
Bring the truth to you. Please subscribe to my channel. Share with your friends.
No. Okay, now on to the main event. This one's about evolution. The probably the topic most everyone likes, most of the subscribers at this point. So yeah, let's just do it.
What's up, everybody? John Maddox here, coming at you with another late-night logical, plausible, probable. We're going to be having an open mic discussion. You never know where we might end up, but I will say this. Before we're done, we will have put some Evos in their place, because when I'm finished, you done.
You done. Oh, yeah, I'm John Maddox. I talk like this because, yeah, I'm cool. Let's see if he can keep that radio voice up. Epic cringe.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the
What is going on? What happened to your energy? Is it low energy now? Okay.
stream here late night, a little bit impromptu.
Unpromptu? Unpromptu. Did he just say unpromptu? Jesus, man.
But today, ladies and gentlemen, I was so overwhelmed by the reality that evolution is true, that everything that I standing for truth.
Yeah, so keep in mind this whole video is going to be sarcasm. He's like pretending that he's been converted back to evolution. So, and what is he responding to that is like supposedly like offered as proof of evolution, but is just bad proof?
Nephilim free, anybody else really that has ever argued in favor of intelligent design, creationism, any of those things, we're completely out to lunch because it is now on video, proven beyond all doubt. Two very, very important things, ladies and gentlemen. Number one, that taking pre-existing components and turning them into something else, into an entirely new, diverse function, is 150% proven beyond all doubt. And then number two, that...
What does that even mean? Taking pre-existing components and making an entirely new, diverse function is proven beyond a reasonable doubt? Like, what? Things can be taken and put to a new, diverse function. Either, first of all, I don't know what the fuck he means by diverse function. Is that supposed to mean, like, how a part takes on a new function while retaining at least some of its previous function? I assume that's kind of what he knows, or what he means. John's not exactly a wordsmith. He often uses very vague, confusing terminology, and I don't know what he means by it's proven beyond a reasonable doubt because, yeah, we observe this in both intelligent design and non-intelligent processes, that things can take on new functions. But it's confusing the way he says it's proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Like, are you talking about... Obviously he's talking about evolution. Just the way he phrases things is just so... just incomprehensible.
If you have a template, anything is possible, even if you have an infinite amount of time, infinite number of universes, as long as you have that and you have a template.
Even if... Okay, so the second principle, I guess, that of evolution that he's making fun of is if you have a template, anything is possible. So this is not a principle of evolution whatsoever. This is a straw man. There's a very simple rule to evolutionary possibility. You're limited by the traits of the parent generation, and in rare cases, you're limited by the traits of the horizontal gene transfer, like bacteria sharing genetic material or viruses inserting their genes into genomes. But it's the same principle. It's the bacteria or the virus is kind of like a parent that is handing something down. It's inherited. So you're limited in evolution by whatever the traits are of what you're inheriting the traits from. You don't just get traits out of nowhere. You can only modify what you've inherited.
Amazing things can create themselves from scratch. It is truly astounding. Like I said,
Okay, add that to the principle from scratch. No, that's even more of a straw man, and contradicts kind of the thing he was talking about earlier. Um, and I'm not sure what he means by a template. Is the template the thing that's been inherited? This is just incoherent as usual. And then he says from scratch. That's the exact opposite. Exact opposite of what evolution says, because no evolution has ever occurred from scratch. It's always from something that is inherited. Maybe this is what he's referring to as the template, the genetic material of the parent generation, and then you can make modifications to that. The child does not assemble their genome from scratch. It is copied with some slight imperfections in the copy, not necessarily imperfections in the instruction, because sometimes those changes actually end up benefiting, and that's been observed in real time, actually. So that's not even a question anyone should be objecting to.
I was watching some videos earlier and I just could not overcome this and just decided, you know what, folks, I've got to just come out and be honest and let everybody know that, you know what, we've just been being completely and utterly confused, conned, all of those things put together. It's very, very distressing. And yeah, we're just going to have to keep this relatively short because I know that Raw Matt has something that he's wanting to play, or he's going to be reducing it pretty soon. So
Oh
keep
my
this pretty
god,
short
get to the point.
and to the point. So, folks, I've just got to show this to you. So you know how myself, I've argued, just having a component is not enough to actually make it reasonable that if you remove the intelligent agent from the equation or some kind of dynamic artificial intelligence from the equation, that somehow these new things forming are just not true. Well,
nobody says just having a component equals evolution. Whatever this component is, it's part of some larger system, obviously. But the point is, you need replication, and then you need replication, and then you need selection. Natural selection, for in the case of biological evolution. Yeah, you're just very imprecise.
let's just get to it. And I'm going to show you how it is absolutely entirely plausible that you can take old parts and turn them into an entirely new function. So check this out. It's pretty amazing.
So he thinks that it's unreasonable that you can take parts and give them a new function. Well, no. He thinks it's unreasonable for parts to gain a new function via evolution. And the way he's going to prove this is not with an example of some supposed evolutionary adaptation. It's just a guy making a contraption. It's a guy intelligently giving something a new function. So we're dealing with a real mental midget here. Okay, no commentary. No commentary here from John still. Okay, are we just gonna watch this entire video? Okay.
Quick pause. I want you to notice that nothing that he has done so far has anything to do with it being wheels from a bicycle. Okay, these are completely separate new functions that are being created. Okay, just pay attention. Pay very close attention.
Well, What do you mean, like, it has nothing to do with it being wheels from a bicycle? Are you saying that so now it has a new function, or are you saying, like, because it's not being adapted from a functional bike and, like, retaining the function of a bike while adapting to new functions? This is why. Oh my god. I can't even deal with this guy because he can't even make cogent, like, he can't even make comprehensible arguments, let alone cogent, sound, valid ones. And what? Why is he reacting to this? Did someone send you this video as an example of, like, how adaptation works, or are you just picking a video of intelligent design and using that as a straw man for how adaptation works? He didn't mention how anyone, like, sent it to him. Like, that would be important context. So it doesn't seem like he's, like, responding to this. Like, he went out and found this as, like, a this is what evolutionists think is happening. Literally, by itself from scratch. So I'm gonna assume that he just did that because that's what it seems like. So it's just adapting parts of machines to make other machines, and he's trying to equivocate that to evolutionary adaptation in biology. That is both the straw man and the equivocation fallacy. So, like I always say, creationists and theists cannot make arguments, at least on creationism and theism, without using fallacies. Oh my god! We're just gonna watch him make this whole thing.
Now, something I want you guys to pay very close attention to is look at keep track, if you can, of the number of different types of tools that are used in this new creation that's being formed, completely from external parts that have no direct relevance to what the end product will be. Okay, this is called adaptation, ladies and gentlemen, and it's taking little pieces of different things and putting them all together into creating an entirely new gizmo. Now, I would just make sure, like I said, just make sure you keep track of how many different types of tools are being used throughout this.
Tools? So, like, did God use tools to make life? Like, where are his tools? But yeah, John, this is intelligent design, not evolution. The evolution of a bike into a crossbow would look much, much different. It would have some function through every step of the change. Instead, with intelligent design, everything's broken down and essentially functionless as parts until assembled in one process as a whole. Yet in evolution, we see the organisms along every stage of change, and they're all functional. An eye spot is functional. A concave eye spot is functional. An eye pocket, functional. Eye pocket with a lens, functional. Eye with a lens filled with jelly, functional. Eye with more light detecting cells than before, functional. An eye socket that's, like, receded in, more functional. An eye socket that has little muscles attached to it, functional. An eye socket that can fully rotate, still functional. And we have examples on every step of that way. And they're in the correct order. Or another example, a horse with 3 toes is functional, a horse with a really big middle toe and 2 smaller toes is functional, and a modern horse with 1 really big toe as its whole foot, functional. And those are all in that order in the fossil record. Creationists actually do accept that. Most of them. Or the example of fish with fins. It can use to push off the seafloor. Fish with fins that can be used to push off shallow water sands. Fish that can use fins to push itself up onto the beach and along beach sands. Fish with all that, but their fins are just a little more muscular. Fish with all that plus fin bones with better weight distribution. These are all functional on every step of the way, and we have examples of these arising in the fossil record in that order every major step of the way. It's like all of these traits are present in the parent generation. They're just manipulated slightly, made a little better. It has muscles. It's just muscles just get a little more strong. It has bones. They just get a little bit better at distributing weight for land. Has lungs. They just get a little bit better at absorbing oxygen, so they don't need to depend on gills. So, yeah. Like you said, creationists have no clue. You're out to lunch because you just listen to straw men of evolution and laugh at how stupid they are. Because they are stupid. Because they're straw men. Because the Hovens and Hams of the world do not represent what evolution actually claims. You don't understand how evolution works, John. Period. Nothing. No commentary whatsoever. How long are we going to have to wait? Am I going to have to start entertaining you guys?
Skip ahead a little bit.
He said something. Okay, we're not going to say anything then. Oh, he's going for it. He's going for it. Oh, no.
Also, folks, make sure you notice that there is zero intelligent agency going into the utilization of these external parts that are completely divergent. Just make sure you do not miss out on the fact there is absolutely no foreknowledge or intent necessary or for any of this to come together. This is all totally doable without an intelligent agent, for sure.
Because this is so analogous to evolution. John, this is not evolution. You silly manlet. I don't understand. Why? So it's just as ridiculous to think that life got new traits as it is to think that this crossbow assembled itself. That's your claim. And yet they aren't analogous situations at all. Is his video lagging or is mine?
Now, folks, I want you to notice that there's a chemical reaction that's about to happen. If you noticed, all of those natural chemicals that are contained inside those canisters, that's just chemical reactions, okay? This is all pure naturalistic actions. There is nothing remotely, even, there's nothing that even points towards intelligent agency in any of this whatsoever.
No, they're not chemical reactions. Unlike macro machines like this, the so-called cellular machinery is literally all chemistry. It's called biochemistry. John, I know you haven't taken biochemistry because that's like a somewhat advanced college level class in biology. And you didn't even know what ribose was. The sugar that is the molecular structure in nucleotides. But, deoxyribonucleic acid, that's where the ribo comes from. So, but people who are actually educated in biology have to learn the chemistry on the molecular, nay, the atomic and subatomic level, literally on the electrons. That, like, we learn that cellular chemistry. There's no reaction occurring that holds the wood and the metal of this machine together. There's no reaction. It is chemical because it's like the way that they interact with each other, but there's no reaction. There is a difference. For people who are actually educated in science, they know the difference. These are just solids. They're not reacting to anything. There's not even a reaction occurring when the soda can pops off. Like, depressurizing gas is not a chemical reaction, John. You literally don't even know the first thing about chemistry. That's not an exaggeration. I'm not memeing right now. You do not know the first thing about chemistry. You don't even know what a chemical reaction is. If you passed any chemistry class ever, like even at the high school level, you have clearly retained zero knowledge from literally day one. A change in the state of matter or a change in the pressure of matter is not a chemical reaction. The reason this is such a bug up your butt is because chemical reactions often tend to have some anti-fragility in them, such as pH buffers, which the blood has that, and mutations to the materials in reactions will give very different results by changing very little, or they'll remain the same by changing very little, or they'll retain an original function but produce something else that the original reaction didn't, or it'll use up all of the chemicals and produce less than the original reaction, which might be better, might be worse. The point being, you can kind of mess with the chemicals and they'll still retain some of the function, right? It might produce some waste, and that waste might be able to be used for a new reaction. You know that chemical reactions that sustain cells can also mutate, and we witness this in real time. Your rescue device is that if one chemical signaling pathway gets modified for a new function, oh, it's still a bacteria. As if we expect anything else. That we think that because one chemical pathway gets mutated and it's a new function, that somehow the bacteria is now a whale. Not how it works. First, the bacteria has to become multicellular, and that's a long way from a whale. Anyway, but we are still fish. We are still mammals. We are still monkeys. So even if a bacteria changes form, it's still a bacteria. We're all just modified versions of what we came from. So a fish that gets legs is still a fish. Each step of the way, each modification, creationists acknowledge is real individually. Changes in size, shape, orientation, number, location, and chemical content of body parts and proteins are all accepted by creationists. That's undeniable. It's observable. What they don't accept, though, is the accumulation of these traits to the point where the descendant looks really different down the line. This is equivalent to saying that it can snow 2 inches but never 10. So a fish can change its skeleton, can change its skin, can breathe on land, crawl on land, improve any of those traits or any of the others that they already have. But according to the creationists, fish can never do all of those things to become more like a salamander. It can do each one of those individually, but just not all of them, or most of them. Okay, no commentary. This is driving me nuts. Why can't you play the video while you commentate? Clearly he did research to try and
And look at
find
that.
the
See,
video.
completely natural chemical reactions are the result of that. And through natural selection,
Not a
he
chemical
is
reaction.
realizing, well, actually, he's not because there is no intelligent agency. So the
There's no selection going on.
wood and the metal and the marble are all working in unison to cause the chemical reactions you're now witnessing. Let's fast forward just a little bit because, this actually has much more relevance to, much more natural things. So we need to see carnivores being able to adapt and utilize these completely naturally occurring functions in order for survival of the fittest. Look at that. Look at that.
What?
That crossbow created itself through the utilization of pre-existing parts to enable this organism to have survival and be the fittest. It's truly amazing. I don't even know how to. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how I can continue to support intelligent design anymore. After witnessing this and what I'm about to show you, I just don't think that we can ever continue on with the position that somehow it's not rational to conclude that these things could create themselves. And then, so one more. Let's just do a.
Well, when you use a completely broken analogy that has literally no analogous features, like not one, other than it's complicated. Well, that's where your whole logical, plausible, probable falls apart. Because you're not. So, yeah, I'm very confident no one sent him that first video like, hey, this is how traits get repurposed for new functions. No, this is a complete straw man because they're saying the argument is life is intelligent design. It's exactly the same as this guy who's making a contraption intelligently. So to say that life wasn't intelligently designed is the same as saying this contraption designed itself. Which again, evolution does not propose anything designs itself. It's just that changes occur, and some changes stay, and some changes do not. It's very simple. He's not debunking anything, and it's hard to kind of respond to it on the sarcastic level because he's obviously gonna hide behind jokes if he sees this. He's gonna say, bro, I was being sarcastic. Do you not get the joke? Literally sarcasm. So yeah, in his mind this is somehow analogous to evolution, even though it lacks replication and natural selection. Technically, the designer is selecting certain traits, but it's completely different. He's not going through different mutations and selecting which ones are closest to his vision. He's literally just selecting the parts that he handmade for his vision. So, I mean, there's a little bit of selection, like he saw a bicycle and selected those wheels. They were pre-existing components, but he made he made the wood. He shaped it himself. But this is why John doesn't want to actually tackle a real supposed evolutionary process. He doesn't want to tackle a situation like a duplicate stomach pouch being used as a float bladder, which can then be used to absorb more oxygen, which can then be used as a lung. So, no, that would actually be addressing evolution, which creationist cowards cannot do. The strategy is just to sarcastically claim that an example of intelligent design is not intelligent design, instead of critiquing an actual alleged example of evolution. Checkmate, atheists.
Quick. So one of the other things that we hear ad nauseum is that as long as you have a template that, and you have enough time, and potentially an infinite number of universes, it's totally reasonable that incredible things, no matter how implausible it would seem in any other context, that this could just...
What are you talking about? A template? Clearly not the template we're looking at here, which is like a tracing that he's using to guide his carving. I think John's talking about the parent DNA as a template that can be mutated. But no, anything is not possible just from a template. First of all, you need replication, mutation, and selection. You don't have that. And you can't create anything from that either. Because, like I said earlier, you're limited to the traits that are in this, what he calls a template. What I think he calls a template, because he doesn't clarify. It doesn't mean anything.
create itself. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to just watch this. And
so he's using another machine woodshop example as an analogy for something in biology. Brilliant. There's absolutely no reason to call creationists out to lunch. You totally aren't just proving what we say about creationists being absolute Dunning-Kruger syndrome mongers.
Convince yourself that with an infinite amount of time, an infinite number of universes, but zero intelligent agents, that what you're about to witness could absolutely 100% create itself without it being ridiculously implausible to come to that conclusion.
Okay, so the premise here is extremely vague. With a template, anything is possible. And that also it creates itself. He just added that to the premise. Neither of which are evolutionary premises, so he's not addressing evolution, and he's using a false analogy. So somehow this guy's brain is still functioning enough to feed himself. I'm not quite sure how that works. Oh my god, we're gonna have to just watch the whole thing again. Please make your points while you're giving visuals. Like, it's really not that hard, John. Like, I like the video. I might watch something like this. But people are here for commentary. And I don't want to just, like, straight up steal the video. And just, like, Hassan style, just go, cool. Every 10 minutes. And
now remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is just like evolution. You start off very rough and without really any precision or any detail. And then very slowly over time, you're going to form and create something of extraordinary and exquisite detail, intricacies, interdependencies, and just it's really amazing, ladies and gentlemen, how this is so analogous to evolution. And you just have to give it
analogous? There's no such word as analogous.
Analogous. Analogous.
So again, yes, all he cares about is extraordinary detail. It's rough, and then it becomes more complicated. This can only happen through intelligent design, according to him. But John, there's this process called evolution, which you haven't actually talked about this entire time, where changes happen between generations. Unlike in the example you give, the changes are occurring without replication of the entire machine or this entire piece of art. It's just one. There are no generations. Every single time a change is made, it's just happening to this one object. And it's being done clearly by an intelligence that can be seen and is manipulating it in real time. But in evolution, the changes are selected by efficiency of replication, not by an intelligent or aesthetic purposes. Okay? And the changes occur between generations, not to one single object or one single entity. Again, we have an example of one generation with changes selected by an intelligence being equivocated with a process of changes through millions of generations, the results of each which are selected by survivability. So literally they have nothing in common. These are not analogous with a hard G. So someone's starting with an idea they have in mind and consciously putting all these changes towards one single object versus actual evolution where the subjects only change slightly per generation, and then they copy that and all changes are kept or thrown out, not based on intelligence, not based on aesthetics or what someone wants. It's just simply on if they're killed or not, if they have enough babies or not. There's absolutely no comparison you can draw, and he thinks they're the same because they're both complex. There's not much complexity going on in that brainlet, is there? And guys, don't feel bad for John. He's one of the rudest, most ad hominem happy little skeevers out there. Very Christ-like.
Enough time. I mean, remember, this block of wood could definitely turn itself into what you're about to see without any difficulty whatsoever. There are no special tools that are going to be required. No form.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Again, dumbass, complexity does not require an intelligence. I know this chafes your cheeks, but I'm sorry.
Come along, Howard. Time for your lobotomy.
I'm not sorry!
So because this guy uses tools to make something complex, therefore anything complex has to make use of tools and intelligence. So tell me, what are God's tools? Oh yeah, magical superpowers, that's right. A miracle occurs and that's it. That's science. That's totally logical, plausible, and probable. No need to explain the tools, it's just the power of God. That's all you need to know. You ain't gotta explain shit. He's committing the fallacy of affirming the antecedent. This is where you say something like, if I have the flu, I'll have a fever. I have a fever, therefore I have the flu. This is taking a consequence that could have multiple causes and assigning it to just the one cause that you think it is, and assuming that no other cause is involved. So here, John is saying that if intelligence and foreknowledge and highly advanced tools are used, you'll have complexity. Then he's saying there's complexity in life, therefore it was intelligently designed with foreknowledge and tools and etc., etc. Even though ignoring the fact that these things can be caused by things other than intelligence. This is why the fallacy of a false analogy is so frustrating, because it leads to other fallacies like this. So, but again, what do you expect? Creationists cannot reason without using fallacies, meaning they can't reason, period. At least on this subject, as I said earlier.
Or knowledge, no intellect, no nothing whatsoever. Completely undirected process can do it.
Oh my god. How are you comparing the two? Just seriously, how? Like, how dumb do you have to be to compare successive generations of mutations and sexual recombination with natural selection, aka modification with descent, to carving some wood? It doesn't get any more Dunning-Kruger than this. It doesn't get any more smooth brain than this, folks. This video needs to have a warning for possible brain damage, because you're likely to get a brain hemorrhage here. You're going to need to have God on your side to help you cheat death. You're going to need a miracle. When you're in the operating room, surrounded by doctors, if you want to survive this video. And unless you believe in a literal 6-day creation, God will just let you die. He won't help you. He won't work through the surgeon's hands. So, convert now, heathens. Does John think... Yeah, he actually does. He actually believes that the way, like, an animal gets its shape is that God literally carves it from, like, a lump of raw materials, like clay. Not that they're shaped from the inside out because of inheriting a body from being born and growing like that. They aren't modified from what came before. That's not biblical. Oh my, I can't believe there's no commentary at all. He just... You'd think he could use this, you could speed it up or show selected clips to get his point across. And it's still going.
I mean, look at this. Look at how the muscles are creating themselves, folks. The muscle definition, the legs, the arms, the limbs, everything is just an emergent property. Look at the way it's just creating itself, folks. It is amazing how just the fundamental components of biological systems can just form themselves out of enough time. There's no way that anybody would ever conclude, if you had enough time, that what we're witnessing would not create itself. I mean, anybody who says otherwise is just a blinded by faith, God of the gaps addict who doesn't think for themselves, has very, very low IQ, no critical thinking skills whatsoever. And I think it's just time that we be very direct, very honest, and very blunt, and just be like, well, what your argument is that there's no reproduction in this context. But it doesn't matter that things have to be.
Jesus Christ, you're an idiot. Reproduction and selection are fundamental traits lacking in your analogy. These are very important things. And mutation. These things cannot shape themselves, as you put it. Neither can anything in biology. No one claims that anything in biology shapes itself. It's the chemistry. So, at the risk of repeating myself, genius, the artist is selecting each change before he makes it, according to a design. In evolution, no one is selecting anything. The changes that are selected by death and reproductive success. Almost all changes that are possible will occur. Then nature keeps what's successful, and what's not successful dies off and doesn't keep appearing because it doesn't pass on its genes. There's no grand plan, there's no design, there's no goal. If it works, it stays. If it doesn't work, it doesn't stay. There's nothing in this process that precludes complexity and is in fact the only process humans can use to create more complexity than we can do with intelligent design. Mutation and selection are the major factors in AI machine learning. We literally don't know how to make AI think correctly by planning it out. We literally make the program mutate, see what it does, and then keep the ones that work. So, now what works in the context of computing is different. It's still artificial selection rather than natural selection, but it's mutation and successive generations. Those principles hold the same. And selection is a little bit different than how the selection of an artist works, because he's not selecting from multiple generations. He's just selecting from his one single entity. If you wanted to use a wood carving analogy, you'd have to have a video that showed a guy who made random cuts on thousands of blocks of wood and selected the ones that got him toward the goal. Then he would have to copy nearly exactly the ones that he selected thousands of times, then repeat this random process of cutting in random places, and then select the ones closest to his plan, copy those, repeat that a few thousand times at least. But no, we're working with one single entity that he can pick where he's going to act on it. That's not how evolution works. So the important parts are the successive generations and the mutations, and to some extent the selection, even though, it could be argued selection is the same because the environment is either nature or the preferences of the person making the selection of where he's going to carve. But again, the selection that applies to evolution can only apply to selecting successive generations. So not this analogy. It doesn't work. Well, what am I saying? No creationist will understand these subtle points being made here. So I'll just move on.
Be in the exact same order, in the exact same angle, or the specific angles, and they have to be perfect and have all the components necessary in order to have the end function. But it's no, all of it's totally flawed.
This is the sharpshooter fallacy. You're looking at one particular outcome among thousands of random outcomes and drawing a circle around that particular one as if that was the target goal the whole time, or at all. Biological systems can achieve the same function with many different proteins, body parts, chemical reactions, etc. It does not have to be this particular thing that you've drawn a circle around, and it doesn't even have to be whatever it ends up as at all. And it doesn't have to be that particular way that it ended up as. It's just whatever works. So evolution goes in many different directions, but if you arbitrarily select just a single one and act like that's the only one it can be and the only way that one trait can be, then you can trick some ignorant people into thinking that the angles had to be just so, etc., etc. They don't. The diversity of life within kinds is a complete testament to that. Even creationists, with their kinds, have to stretch what they believe is possible in evolution just to be able to sort of make it so the animals can maybe fit on the ark.
Possible to come into existence without any tools being necessary, no very exquisite functions, no detail, nothing. Nope, it's all good.
Like I said, John is not a wordsmith. Nobody in biology says that biology doesn't have detail or exquisite functions. But no, it doesn't require supernatural powers and supernatural power tools to exist. Where's your God's lab, by the way? And what tools did he use? You guys revel in God's creations so much, but you never want to know how he did it. Jesus. You could have just recorded yourself talking about your points, then laid this footage on top of it instead of pausing every time you have to say something borderline brain dead that you've already said 50 times, sarcastically. Like, record your shit, then lay it over the visuals. You do know that if the reference is visual, you can talk during it, right?
And like the face, folks, this is where Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. This is where the brow is going to change, folks. That dominant forehead is going to be reduced as he evolves. Okay, this is what's happening right here. You don't want to miss it.
John, what the actual fuck is wrong with you? This would be a good joke if you were making fun of creationists, but you're making a mockery of your own beliefs because you're showing us all that you have no idea what you're even attempting to make fun of. And yeah, we get the point. Complex equals intelligent design. Jesus Christ. I don't know how long he's gonna let this go. So I'm trying to add commentary over the top because he's just wasting our time. Okay, it's over.
And there you have it, folks. And there you have it. 100% proof that evolution is true, that with enough time, anything is possible. And if you have a template to get started with that somehow created itself, magnificent forms of art can definitely come into existence and be actualized with zero intelligent agency necessary. You saw no agents. There was nothing. Those tools carried themselves. Those tools were used in precise angles, measurements,
So where is the video of God making life to make this analogous?
force, all of those different things were done completely by chance and natural selection, folks. That's all you have to have in order to make amazing things come into existence.
No, you have to have mutation through successive generations and then natural selection. And that wasn't natural selection that you showed. It was carried out by agents.
It's just, anyway. I was going to do a little bit of open discussion. However, I had forgotten.
Yeah, he's going to try and hide behind sarcasm here if he actually responds to any of this. But the point being made is that it's ridiculous for people to think life evolved through natural processes, that it must have been designed because of how ridiculous it would be to say the same thing about these two art projects he put up here, which is ridiculous, which he's demonstrating. It's ridiculous to compare what he's reacting to evolution. There's no natural selection, no successive generations, no mutation in his examples. You know, the actual mechanisms of evolution, the primary, the main ones, the important ones, definitely the ones that separate most this analogy. Therefore, the analogy falls flatter than a graph of John's IQ from the age of 6.
That Raw Matt had a video that was getting ready to go live. So we will just kind of end things there, and hopefully Raw Matt and Intending for Truth will realize that they've been completely, brainwashed, they've been conned, and maybe...
Yeah, if you believe that you made a cogent comparison there, you're way more fucked than being brainwashed and conned. That's just full-on brain damage delusion. So, once again, not an ounce of logic, not a smidgen of plausibility, not even a quantum subatomic level hint of probability. Alright, folks, this was a video that I had to search far and wide through John's backlog of videos that are all like 6 or 12 hours long. There's no way I could react to that stuff live. I would have to pre-watch it and select out a clip that I wanted to respond to. This one was the only short one I could find for a long time. So, and it was evolution. So, yeah, it worked out. Anyway, that was the Fundie Sunday for the day. Fundie Sunday, actually. Can't mispronounce it. And thank you all for tuning in. Dog bless.